Shadow Hack. Chapter 11, Unfair Battle. SS. This time, Li Yunmu somewhat understood. After defeating the enemy, he could absorb from them the origin energy of flux energy space element. What benefit does this space element bring me? There are great benefits. Space element can be used at different dimensional stores by the host to obtain all kinds of dimensional cultivation methods and battle skills. The higher the grade of dimensional cultivation methods and battle skills, the greater the number of space elements required. Do your best. Following system's explanation, a screen immediately appeared within Li Yunmu's mind. This screen's projection was the same as the hack system's menu on the computer. On the menu, previously there were only the options of hack mode and Li Yunmu's personal information, but now, on the upper right corner, there was a new option to access the dimensional store. Li Yunmu clicked on that little icon and it really was a store. Once the store menu opened up, it had a lot of fourth-dimensional cultivation methods and battle skills. The Admiralty cover, which he obtained from the dimensional box that dropped from the ant he killed, was also included within. Furthermore, apart from this, there were also fifth-dimensional, sixth-dimensional, seventh-dimensional skills and so on, which weren't available yet. This short moment was a feast to Li Yunmu's eyes, and even after some time, he couldn't see the end of the list. However, he was clear about one thing: this dimensional store contained thousands of ancient cultivation methods and battle skills, and as long as he has sufficient space elements, he could purchase these skills. My God, this isn't a joke, right? Li Yunmu's heart was in peril over the ancient battle skills and cultivation methods. From the lowest D-grade cultivation methods and battle skills to the highest A-grade battle skills and cultivation methods, everything was there. Moreover, the number of space elements required was different for each of them. The lowest D-grade cultivation methods and battle skills required 10 to 99 points to purchase, C-grade required 100 to 999 points, B-grade required 1000 to 9999 points, with A-grade requiring a terrifying amount of at least 10,000 space element points. In other words, the Admiralty cover ancient cultivation method from the dimensional box he had obtained from killing monsters previously, had a starting price was at least 10,000 space element points. He couldn't help but look at his own information about space element points -3 points. Oh my God! Doesn't that mean that if he wanted to purchase another fourth-dimensional A-grade cultivation method, he would need to defeat 3,333 more opponents at the same level as the one he just defeated? At this point, Li Yunmu finally became aware of the rarity of the Admiralty cover which he was currently training in. The system had already informed him that the probability of a dimensional box dropping from the body of monsters was infinitesimal. This minute probability meant that the frequency of the box dropping was once every 10,000 monsters killed. Moreover, the chances of an A-grade cultivation method or battle skill coming out of the dimensional box were even smaller. Thus, if Li Yunmu wants to rely on dimensional boxes dropping from monsters killed to obtain high-grade cultivation methods and battle skills, it would just be a dream within a dream. Previously, when the A-grade skill, Admiralty cover, came out, it was his first time opening a dimensional box. The system had been greatly benevolent and he had hit the jackpot in the first attempt, but he wouldn't be so lucky the second time. It seems like if I want to use space elements to get even more high-grade cultivation methods, then challenging opponents that are even more formidable in the dimensional battlefield is the only choice. Li Yunmu made his choice in a split second. It had to be said that the dimensional store appearing was something that he was greatly looking forward to. This way, he simply had an arsenal of ancient battle skills and cultivation methods available to him. As long as he could accumulate sufficient space elements, he wouldn't need to worry about not being able to learn formidable battle skills and cultivation methods. Continue. Thinking about this, Li Yunmu immediately began to find his second battle. The dimensional battlefield quickly began to automatically matchmake him with an opponent. Defeating his enemy in the last match had given a great boost to Li Yunmu's confidence. Although he was currently just a new Flux disciple rookie that hadn't learned many battle skill or cultivation method, it was not like he was completely lacking. At least, he has the formidable Admiralty cover to reduce the damage taken and his newly acquired arrow evasion step foundation skill. If they were used against an ordinary fledgling like himself, the effects would be tyrannical. In a few minutes, the dimensional battlefield quickly found his second opponent. Location: Ancient Competition Battlefield. Equipment? Oh, it would be good to choose the most common battle suit, armor plating, and blade. Begin. Li Yunmiu clicked OK. In the next moment, he arrived at the Ancient Competition Battlefield. The whole competition stage only had a diameter of 30 m. This time, he learned his lesson from the last fight and moved to a more advantageous position to hide. Yi, this opponent is unexpectedly a girl. Carefully watching the opponent, he discovered that this time, his opponent was surprisingly a female. Moreover, she didn't seem that much older than him, it seemed like they were of similar age. But what about it? Li Yunmiu wouldn't go easy just because the opponent was a girl. At this moment, there was only one thing on his mind, and that was to earn more space element. Pang! Li Yunmiu launched the most simple attack towards his opponent. Since he only had the chainmail armor and blade, he naturally used the most direct method of close-ranged attack. You have ordinary flux energy. Strange, why did the brain match you, an ordinary flux disciple, as my opponent? Seeing Li Yunmiu's attack, the female slightly creased her brows. Apparently, she couldn't understand why she would be matched against an ordinary opponent with only one win, with her level of power. What ordinary flux energy? I don't care, die for me. After crossing more than 10 meters in a blink of an eye, Li Yunmiu instinctively slashed the blade towards the female. Trying to cut me with only your level of skill. That girl smiled and sidestepped slightly, dodging the attack. After that, the opponent completely changed Li Yunmiu's battle experience. Li Yunmiu kept on attacking the opponent, slashing again and again, but that girl dodged everything easily. Oh my god! Li Yunmiu's heart sunk. He knew that the opponent he had encountered this time was much stronger than his first opponent. They say that when experts make their move, it would be clear whether or not they were won. This girl surprisingly has an excellent sidestepping posture. He had successively stabbed 18 times, but the result was that he wasn't able to touch even a single hair of hers. This failure was sufficient for him to realize that perhaps, earning space elements wasn't that easy. The crucial point here was that his present strength and battle skill was only at a very basic level. After trying to stab her 18 times, Li Yunmiu began to gasp for breath. A basic level flux disciple's flux energy basically couldn't support him attacking for so long. You look tired, it's my turn. That girl laughed faintly. Within a split second, her figure moved at twice the speed that she used when she was dodging. Revolving around Li Yunmiu, she resembled a charging hurricane. 1000 cuts 36 forms. The girl shouted loudly. Several short blades revolved around Li Yunmiu like a hurricane. Ding 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 ding. Within a split second, Li Yunmiu faced that girl's sudden violent assault. It was terribly frightening. Even if he had battle instinct formed by killing hack monsters for the past few days, he was only able to stop 5 stabs in front of him. Then, 2 short blades, with strength greater than others, stabbed at Li Yunmiu's body. It's over. Li Yunmiu was very irritated. Where did this female come from? He was aware that with his basic level flux disciple's strength, it should have been impossible for him to be matched with this kind of opponent. He could barely sense that the flux energy attached to the last 2 short blades exceeded strength that a rookie could produce. Whether it was the flux energy's quality or quantity, it was far stronger compared to himself. The most depressing thing was, not only was opponent's flux energy was stronger, she had even grasped a high-level dodging arts and an even stronger battle skill. Motherfucker, how was this a fight? It was simply bullying him. Chapter 12, Extreme Defense. 1000 cuts 36 forms. Li Yunmu dodged 3 stabs by relying on his battle instinct and evaded 2 more stabs with the arrow evasion step skill, but his resistance ended there. That girl had clearly grasped a very high-grade battle skill. In this 1000 cuts 36 forms, each stab was progressively stronger and quicker compared to the previous one, even though she had now produced only 13 stabs with her full strength. And in the next moment, Li Yunmu's body was pierced by 8 stabs, with each more formidable than the last. The whole process lasted less than 2 seconds. 13 blades stabbing within 2 seconds, let alone their strength, they were even 2 to 3 times faster than Li Yunmu's stabs. This is an offensive battle skill? Is this the flux energy battle skill of this world, created by improving upon ancient martial arts? Too strong. At this instant, Li Yunmu understood that awakening flux energy to become a flux disciple was only the beginning, his future path was much longer. Ding 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 ding. 8 successive stabs pierced through his body like torrential rain. Just when Li Yunmu thought that he had lost, he surprisingly discovered that even after taking on the attack of the opponent, he was still standing. Oh? He was indeed still standing. Ha ha ha, I'm fine. Only my stomach hurts a little. Li Yunmu managed to laugh. But while he was in a daze, he realized something. From the start, the damage reduction ability of the Admiralty cover was too heaven-defying. With the ability points that he had earned these past few days by killing monsters unceasingly, Li Yunmu had already upgraded the Admiralty cover to the 4th level. With the Admiralty cover reducing damage taken by 34%, he had only suffered 66% of the damage from the opponent's hurricane attack. In other words, within a split second, the strength of opponent's attack had been weakened by almost a third. Moreover, Li Yunmu had chosen the chainmail defense suit, which provides great defense. Oh gosh, this time, Li Yunmu discovered that when the cultivation method, Admiralty cover, joined together with the defensive suit, it simply took his defense to a whole new pinnacle. This type of peak defensive power simply didn't have a match because the protective effect of both of them was not simply added upon one another, rather, the effect was multiplied. It was indeed worthy of being called the ancient times' first-rate defensive cultivation method. How is this possible? Her rookie opponent should have fallen a long time ago. Who could have thought that after receiving 8 of her stabs, none of which could be treated as a joke, he would be able to stand up and laugh like a madman. The girl was startled and fury soon appeared on her good-looking face. She decided to use the 1000 cuts 36 forms against Li Yunmu again. But the outcome completely stunned her. This time, her opponent neither dodged nor did he avoid it. He directly received all 13 stabs and then, this repulsive person began to laugh savagely again. By now, this girl understood the situation clearly. As it turned out, the dimensional battlefield didn't make a mistake when matching. Rather, this person's body was extremely frightening, he even had a defensive cultivation method which she had never seen before. This would explain the reason why the dimensional battlefield had matched this ordinary fluxer as her opponent. Girl, you tired? It's my turn now. After failing to break opponent's defense twice, this time, her opponent threw back the same words which she had previously used to taunt him. Chu Qingyu's mood had never been so vile before. Even a rookie fluxer was taking liberties with her? What made her even more enraged was that, after that, Li Yunmu raised up his blade and shouted her family's famous battle skill. 1000 cuts 36 forms. Li Yunmu burst out laughing. Imitating the girl's actions, in a moment, he advanced forward and stabbed her continuously with one stab quicker than last. But how could his blade skills be as swift as his opponent? He was just recklessly slashing with all his might. However, the outcome startled everyone on the dimensional battlefield. How is this possible? How can Chu Qingyu lose to this youngster? What is going on? Isn't this too ridiculous? It's over, little Yu is going to be so angry. But who is this youngster? His defensive cultivation method is so formidable. Two of Chu Qingyu's sisters had also come to the dimensional battlefield to spectate the match, but they hadn't expected that this dimensional battle would be so unreasonable and weird. When Chu Qingyu had unleashed all of her attacks, everyone discovered that she was unable to break Li Yunmu's defense. After that, everyone could anticipate the outcome. The fight lasted 37 minutes. Finally, when Li Yunmu chased after her without caring about the others present, it was more than the girl could bear, and for the first time, she had to admit to something which she felt lost her all of her face: defeat. Ding, you have defeated your opponent. You have absorbed 76 space element points from your opponent. Ding, your arrow evasion step skills proficiency had increased by 13 points. To upgrade to the next level, you still need 87 proficiency points. Ding, within the dimensional battlefield, you have comprehended the basic level of Violent Blade offensive skill. When Chu Qingyu took the initiative to admit defeat in a fit of fury, Li Yunmu finally heard a series of notifications from the system informing him about his gains. I have surprisingly absorbed so many space element points. Li Yunmu sucked in a deep breath, both of his eyes opened widely. Previously, when he fought against his first opponent and defeated him with great difficulty, he had only received 3 space element points. But now, after defeating this little girl, he had surprisingly absorbed 76 space element points. What was going on? What surprised him even more was that not only did the proficiency of his arrow evasion step skill increase from this match, he had also comprehended the Violent Blade offensive skill. Bliss, this was really blissful. Humph, I will remember you. Next time when we meet, I, Chu Qingyu, will definitely destroy that tortoise shell of yours. The little girl was furious, but before she could complete her rant, she discovered that her opponent didn't pay any attention to her ridicule and walked away from the scene, completely ignoring her. Li Yunmu. That girl stood in place gnashing her teeth, then swiftly walked away. After retreating from the battlefield for the second time, Li Yunmu consolidated the 2 gains from this time's battle. When he suddenly discovered that this dimensional battlefield was made for him, it was simply a great bliss. In just 2 fights, he had gained great harvests. With just thought, his personal information appeared within his mind. As expected, the stats in his personal information had increased. Host, Li Yunmu. Rank, Flux Disciple. Cultivation Method, A-grade Admiralty Cover, 4th level. Battle Skill, Arrow Evasion Step Evasive Skill, Basic Stage, Violent Blade Offensive Skill, Basic Stage. Experience Points, 36 points. Ability Points, 29 points. Space Element, 79 points. The above mentioned was Li Yunmu's current stats. It has to be said that his foundation was getting stronger and stronger. As for that girl's final threat, he didn't care about it. By the time they meet again, this elder brother's Admiralty cover would have been upgraded by who knows how many levels. Chapter 13, First Purchase. Following that, after Li Yunmu found out about being able to purchase 4th-dimensional cultivation methods using space elements, he kept on fighting battles as if he was possessed. At the end of the day, he had fought 10 battles. Since the concealed strength of the Admiralty cover was also calculated when finding an opponent to fight, as a result, Li Yunmu's every opponent had much stronger flux energy than him. But the dual defense of Admiralty cover and the metal-plated armor was too tyrannic. After battling for 20 virtual world days continuously, Li Yunmu won more than he lost. Among the opponents he encountered, only a few were unique, like Chu Qingyu, surpassing the level of an basic flux disciple. Thus, the amount of space elements that he absorbed after each battle was actually not that much, with the majority of them being single digits. Until the 29th Virtual World Day, when he defeated his opponent and won his 171st battle, absorbing 8 space element points, did his battle craze to absorb space element come to an end as he calmed down and stopped fighting. Because, after battling for 10 real-world days continuously and absorbing space elements, the amount of space elements absorbed had finally reached a considerable amount, 1,000 points. Finally, I have enough. That wasn't easy. Li Yunmu deeply exhaled and relaxed. He had excessively surpassed his limit. For almost one whole month, he kept battling in the dimensional battlefield for almost 18 hours every day. How did he manage to support himself? Now that he thought about it, Li Yunmu was also frightened by his insane behavior. 1,000 space element points meant that he could now obtain a B-grade cultivation method or battle skill. For this goal, he had even stopped killing monsters using the hack system during these past few days. Now, he had finally accomplished it. System, I want to purchase a B-grade cultivation method. Finally, after waiting for this day for so long, Li Yunmu couldn't help his excitement and loudly raised his request to the system. You have 1,000 space element points, you meet the requirement for a B-grade cultivation method. System requests the host to choose the category of the cultivation method you want to purchase. I choose the defensive category cultivation method. Without needing to think too much, Li Yunmu instantly locked onto the defense category cultivation method. Ever since he was young, he was aware of the saying "Jack of all trades, master of none." Rather than being mediocre in every field of battle, it would be better to excel extensively in just one field. Hence, he basically didn't have any thoughts about purchasing offensive battle skills. Within the fourth-dimensional store, there were 329 defensive category cultivation methods and battle skills, which included cultivation methods which have passive effects and battle skills that need to be activated to be used. Admiralty Cover was an A-grade passive cultivation method. It had a tyrannical damage-reducing ability which didn't require Li Yunmu to worry about activating it. Thus, he was fully aware of this type of cultivation method and it clearly suited someone like him, whose experience with battle skills was little. This would certainly help him quickly obtain even greater strength. B-grade defensive category cultivation method has been chosen. Congratulations, you have obtained the B-grade cultivation method. Copper Body Secrets. 1 ability point is required to practice it. Do you wish to learn it immediately? The rules to purchase cultivation methods in System's fourth-dimensional shop was very simple. B-grade cultivation methods require 1,000 to 9,999 points space elements to purchase. The higher the amount of space element points used, the more specific one could be when choosing cultivation methods or battle skills. For example, if Li Yunmu had directly used 9,999 space element points as the initial capital, then he could select which B-grade cultivation method or battle skill he wants and obtain it. However, if he only used 1,000 space element points, then it would not be as good. He would obtain a random cultivation method or battle skill from all the defensive B-grade battle skill or cultivation method available, in accordance with the price he could offer. So in the end, everything depended on his luck of the draw. Moreover, the Copper Body Secrets cultivation method which Li Yunmu had obtained could be considered a medium-rank cultivation method among the B-grade defensive cultivation methods. Thus, Li Yunmu's luck could be considered pretty good. He had managed to make a profit. Yes. Li Yunmu was so excited that he didn't hesitate and immediately confirmed. 1 ability point was deducted and very quickly, an unusual force violently surged throughout his body. He sensed that his skin and flesh was becoming hard like copper. With the thought, his muscles could become soft or become tough and durable like copper. The transformations happened with just a thought. This is the Copper Body Secrets? It's indeed worthy of being called a B-grade cultivation method. Although it doesn't have the extraordinary ability to reduce damage like Admiralty Cover, its defensive strength is better than the heavy armor of a soldier. Moreover, this is only the effect of the first level. Li Yunmu gave it a thought and immediately, his clothes were almost ripped apart by the extraordinary strength rushing through his body. His white skin from head to toe had turned a copper brown, emitting a metallic luster. He stretched his copper-brown-colored arm and firmly chopped on his metal table. Under the power of his solid arm, the table immediately dented down. Moreover, his arms didn't sustain any injuries, neither was there any pain. Clearly, this defensive cultivation method had a completely different type of defensive property compared to the Admiralty cover. If the defensive effects of these two were merged, it would be completely flawless. Just like before, when he had used the chainmail armor together with Admiralty cover. With the first level of copper body secrets, his defensive strength had become comparable to a soldier's armor. After advancing one more level, its defensive strength would double. According to System's detailed explanation of copper body secrets, if Li Yunmyu could upgrade the copper body secrets to level 10, then like the Admiralty cover, it would experience a fundamental transformation, transforming it to the iron body secrets. After reaching level 20, it would transform into steel body secrets. After training to level 30, it would transform into silver body secrets. At level 40, it would transform into golden body secrets. At level 50, it would transform into heavenly golden body secrets. As for above level 50, the system didn't provide any information. It might be possible that this was already the limit, or perhaps it could still become stronger. In any case, Li Yunmu's blood began to boil. Unexpectedly, this B-grade cultivation method had such great hidden potential. He only had 28 ability points left and decided to use 20 points to upgrade the copper body secrets to the second level. Immediately, he sensed his body's toughness doubling when compared to before. His skin, which was copper brown colored, became even darker. Very strong, the second level of copper body secrets. Now my body's defense has already surpassed an ordinary soldier's armor. Moreover, this is only the second level. When I upgrade it to the 10th level and reach the realm of iron body secrets, wouldn't my defense be slightly tougher compared to a soldier's heavy steel armor? He knew that the heavy steel armor was only second to the titanium alloy heavy armor in terms of defense and was the second choice of battle armor for the majority of the Flux disciples of the Alliance. Moreover, the most important point was that Li Yunmu's iron body secrets wouldn't have any negative effects on his agility and speed. The power of this ancient B-grade cultivation method far surpassed Li Yunmu's imagination. Chapter 14, Battle Soldier Equipment. Ding dong ding dong. May I ask, are you Sir Li Yunmu? An unfamiliar male voice came through the door intercom. That's me, and you are? Li Yunmu got up from the bed with drowsy eyes and replied. I am a courier from Star Pass. Sir Li Yunmu, you have a parcel from Heavenly Cloud City which requires your signature, so? Replied the extremely respectful voice on the other side of the door. Okay, come up. After 10 minutes, Li Yunmu smoothly received the parcel. If his guess wasn't wrong, then this parcel from Heavenly Cloud City should have been sent by his parents. He curiously opened it, and inside was a silver box that had multiple patterns and designs engraved on it. This is Battle Soldier's equipment. Seeing the War God Temple's beautiful and unique pattern, he released a small cry of surprise as his mood became slightly complicated. He had a rough idea what item was inside this box. Using the predetermined pin, he opened the silver box. Indeed, lying calmly inside was a silver-colored garment made with a unique material. At the right corner of the silver box, laid a war blade made of titanium alloy. Dad! Li Yunmu gave a cry as he looked towards the direction of Yuncheng City. This was his father's most precious, most treasured war armor, the best one he had. This fighter's combat suit was made at the War God Temple. Its full name was Super Battle Soldier Arms. Although it was only equipment of the lowest grade created for War God soldiers, for other people, even for Flux disciples, it provided great defense and also increased their strength. They also had a price of 50,000 fourth-dimensional coins or 5 fifth-dimensional coins. Fifth-dimensional coins, what did they mean? Normally, 300 fourth-dimensional coins were enough to fulfill the needs of a normal family of 5 for 1 month. Li Zongmin, who was the captain of a camp, only received a monthly salary of 605 fourth-dimensional coins. Even after Li Yunmu had become a Flux disciple, he only received a monthly salary of 1,000 fourth-dimensional coins from the Alliance. It was very obvious that in the family's previous financial condition, 50,000 fourth-dimensional coins were considered a great sum of money. The most important thing was that even if one's family was wealthy, they might not necessarily have the qualifications to buy it. That was because this was an equipment for the members of the War God Temple only. Although his dad could only produce a trace of flux energy and wasn't even a half-awakened fluxer, because his father was a soldier of the War God troops and had been defending the front lines for the past decade, only then had he gotten the qualifications to place an order for it. Now, he hadn't thought that his dad would surprisingly hand it over to him. Above the Battle Soldier Combat Suit, there was the stronger Battle General Combat Suit and the War God Combat Suit, which was considered the most formidable war armor within the War God Temple. Naturally, Li Yunmu had never seen it before. Li Yunmu stood there silently for a long time before he wore it solemnly. The moment he put it on his body, he sensed his dad's heavy burden and its exceptional importance. But this wasn't the most important point. Most important thing was that the first time he wore the War God Temple's Battle Soldier Combat Suit, Li Yunmu sensed himself becoming stronger. This kind of strength wasn't the same as flux energy awakening, which was strength from the inner body. Rather, this strength came from the depths of his muscles and was distributed everywhere. Sure enough, after putting on this Battle Soldier Combat Suit, even if one had only awakened a trace of flux energy, his body's strength and agility would still be doubled at the very least. The greater the trace of flux energy present, the more the body's strength and agility would be increased. Needless to say about Li Yunmu that had completely awakened his flux energy. Presently, the strength amplification of his physical body had almost reached the peak which the Battle Soldier Combat Suit could attain, which was 5 times. This Battle Soldier Combat Suit is indeed formidable. It's worthy of being a product of the War God Temple. Sensing the changes in his body, Li Yunmu's expression became slightly excited. Clang! After wearing the Battle Soldier Combat Suit, Li Yunmu took out the war blade made with titanium alloy. This war blade was extremely heavy and weighed almost 32 kilograms. If he didn't awaken flux energy and didn't wear the Battle Soldier Combat Suit, being an ordinary person, then let alone using the war blade for prolonged periods of time during war, he wouldn't even be able to swing it. This war blade was similarly produced by the War God Temple and belonged to the same series as the Battle Soldier Combat Suit. Its name was War Soldier Blade and it was sharp, thick, and extremely hard. The price would be 10,000 fourth-dimensional coins. It was clear that Li Yunmu's family possessions, apart from the old house in Lucky Wind City, were all here with him. These 2 items had guaranteed Li Zongmin's safety at the front line for the past dozen years or so, but now they had been passed on to Li Yunmu. Suddenly, Li Yunmu's gaze landed upon his shadow and his whole body quivered. When he saw his shadow after he wore the Battle Soldier Combat Suit and held the war blade in his hand, he suddenly had an idea. Since his shadow had changed because he had put on the equipment, if he started the hack system now, then theoretically, wouldn't the shadow similarly receive the buff of the equipment? Once this thought entered his mind, Li Yunmu couldn't control himself. Moreover, today was precisely the day when the prohibition on his shadow ended, so he could finally use the hack again. System: launch the shadow hack. Location: District Garden. Indeed, his sudden theory was soon proven correct. This time, when the shadow activated and appeared, its body had an additional outlining shadow of the Battle Soldier Combat Suit and its hand now held onto a shadow of the war blade, unlike before when it was bare-fisted. It can indeed be synchronized. Li Yunmu yelled loudly within his heart. At this moment, his shadow had reached the height of 13 centimeters. He clearly remembered that before the flux test, when he had gained a lot of experience points after using the hack for several days and had completely awakened flux energy, his shadow's height grew to 4 centimeters. But now, after putting on Battle Soldier Combat Suit and combining it with the effects of Copper Body Secrets which he had learned yesterday, his shadow had now finally reached the height of 13 centimeters. He knew that the increase in his shadow's height was due to the increase in his personal strength. In other words, his body's present strength had slightly more than tripled compared to the time when he had awakened flux energy. After figuring out all this, Li Yunmu didn't wait even for an instant and immediately controlled the shadow to move into the lawn and began today's hack session. With the great increase in his strength, his shadow had grown to almost 13 centimeters, which meant that he now had a wider variety of insects to choose from. Now, he had the strength to attempt to kill large insects like the spider and house lizard which he had previously encountered. After entering the depths of grass, he took the initiative to battle ants, which had the largest population in the lawn. This time, Li Yunmu faced about 20 ants at one time. In the past, he would have certainly fled immediately after encountering these many ants, but now, he controlled the shadow to kill the ants. With a 9 centimeters increase in shadow's height, the monsters like ants no longer seem as enormous as they were in the past. He lightly slashed his blade at the ant's body and in the next instant, the ant's body was immediately split into 2 parts by that one slash. The whole process was an extremely smooth instant kill. Chapter 15, Proficiency can also be increased while sleeping. Ding! You have slashed and killed an ant, obtaining 1 experience point and 1 ability point. This time, I will show them. Li Yunmu raged within his heart. He really hadn't expected that his shadow could be adapted with the battle soldier combat suit and war blade and successfully inherit the strength of them both. Previously, he was fighting empty-handed, but now, he had a battle soldier combat suit which gave great defense and also an extremely sharp war blade. It simply made him very excited. As he continued with the hack, it was needless to say anything. With the great increase in the shadow's strength and the enormous improvement in equipment, all 24 ants were easily annihilated within less than 3 minutes. Li Yunmu easily harvested 24 experience and ability points. Not long after, he encountered a grade 3 one-headed caterpillar. This time, Li Yunmu didn't retreat back, rather, he bravely advanced and engaged it. Within a few minutes, this once unrivaled huge and long monster in his view very quickly suffered greatly under the war blade's chop. Grade 5 grasshopper. Kill. Grade 7 house lizard kill. Grade 10 mantis. Kill. Finally, after the first round of testing, Li Yunmu surprisingly discovered that when Admiralty cover, copper body secrets and the battle soldier combat suit, these 3 defensive strengths were combined together, the total defensive power was very frightening. Admiralty cover reduced the damage taken by 34%, then when it passed through the battle soldier combat suit the damage was further reduced. Finally, the damage was reduced once more by the copper body secrets. The effect of this 3-layered defense completely exceeded his imagination. When he killed the grade 10 mantis, Li Yunmu puffed up his chest. The small amount of damage it inflicted him couldn't break his defense, it only felt like a mosquito bite. Should retreat now. For the first time, Li Yunmu had finally experienced the frightening power of the Admiralty cover, this A-grade ancient cultivation method, when merged together with other defenses. The effect was certainly not just simple addition, but rather, it had a multiplicative effect. Flesh, lots of flesh. The shadow at this moment, under the effects of the 3 defenses, was like a giant meat shield. What was there to fear about a grade 10 mantis? He could slash furiously at the mantis while ignoring its attack. For the first time, Li Yunmu sensed that killing hack monsters was very easy, he simply needed to attack crazily. Ding! After tempering yourself continuously through battle for several days, you have successfully comprehended the basic footwork insect step, a basic footwork foundation skill. Ding! After tempering yourself through battle for several days, you have successfully comprehended the basic offensive foundation skill cricket cut kick. Insect step, a type of fundamental footwork comprehended through instinct. You have subconsciously imitated and comprehended it. You have grasped the initial stage of insect step. Presently, you only have an initial grasp of insect step. If you want to upgrade it to higher levels, then you have to practice more. Cricket cut kick, a precise cut kick, with the ruthlessness and ferociousness of a cricket. Learned by repeatedly attacking fleas, it has a special effect when used on an organism's limb joints. Presently, you have an initial grasp of cricket cut kick. If you want to upgrade it to next level, then you need to practice even more. When Lee Yun-mu discovered that he had comprehended 2 more basic level foundation skill, he was both surprised and amused. Now if the arrow evasion step foundation skill was included, then he would have surprisingly comprehended 3 different categories of foundation skills with upgradable potential. Furthermore, he also has the formidable defensive cultivation methods, Admiralty cover and copper body secrets. It would not be an exaggeration to say that even if he hadn't gone to register at the Fluxer Guild and hadn't obtained another cultivation method from the system, his body's strength shouldn't be any weaker compared to those rookie Flux disciples who had a strong knowledge about cultivation. It might even be stronger. It has to be said that the benefits that Lee Yun-mu had obtained from Super Shadow hack system were immense. What a pity! Recently, I have also been using both my fists, so why haven't I comprehended any relevant boxing-related foundation skills? What dogshit luck! Lee Yun-mu was slightly resentful. Independently comprehended skills requires the host to be in harmony with that type of foundation skill. If the host and the skill are not in harmony with each other, then it would require the host to further temper himself. System aptly explained. So it was like this. Only then did Lee Yun-mu understand. Next evening, Lee Yun-mu continued his hack. Currently, his strength had greatly increased. With Admiralty cover, copper body secrets and the battle soldier equipment, all of them combined ensured that his defense had reached an unimaginable stage. As a result, his laziness began to take over as he immediately turned manual control back to automatic control. When Lee Yun-mu switched back to automatic control, his consciousness returned back to his body from the shadow. Losing his control, the shadow naturally lost all intelligence and become even more robotic. However, now that even a grade 10 mantis couldn't easily break through his defense, the hack wasn't affected. In the hack location of the neighborhood garden, the highest grade monster would be a toad. Ding! You have killed a grade 7 centipede and obtained 7 experience points and 7 ability points. Ding! You have killed a grade 13 bat hanging from the tree and have obtained 13 experience points and 13 ability points. With a never-ending stream of monsters being killed, the gains were continuously flowing into his brain. At this moment, Lee Yun-mu wasn't feeling too comfortable. He had ordered takeout and was eating fried chicken while drinking coffee, so to constantly hear the reward notifications, his mood wasn't very good. Gradually, he learned another fact. Although using manual control to kill monsters was more flexible and rational and resulted in higher efficiency, when compared to endurance, his manual control's long-term efficiency just couldn't compare to the efficiency of the Shadow's automatic control. All this basically originates from the fact that the Shadow doesn't need to stop and rest, while every time he fought a battle with monsters, he would consume some energy. It seems like the Super Shadow hack system's primary use was still this automatic control. Ding! During battle, your Shadow has successfully used arrow evasion step and insect step. Your arrow evasion step and insect step foundation skills have both gained 1 proficiency point. Ding! You have repeatedly jumped and slashed with the war blade. This has further sharpened your instincts towards blades. You have comprehended leap strike. The fuck, what was all this? Lee Yun-mu cheered up. Originally, he had believed that since he had switched to automatic control, the proficiency of his foundation skills wouldn't rise, but who would have thought that there would be this kind of benefit? It seems like the automatic control would continuously use foundation skills over and over again, so once in a while, his proficiency would go up. However, the most important thing with automatic control wasn't only that it had greater endurance, but also that it didn't require Lee Yun-mu to pay attention to it. Not even several hours has passed since he had used the war blade, but he had now comprehended the leap strike offensive foundation skill. In addition to the violent blade foundation skill, he was only using blade type weapons, but he had already grasped 2 blade type foundation skills. It seems like his affinity with blade-type weapons was very high. Unknowingly, Li Yunmu fell asleep. However, the shadow on his computer screen was still automatically searching for monsters, until a trace of dawn appeared on the horizon. Suddenly, the system gave a loud notification beep which woke him up. Ding! The proficiency of your insect step has reached the limit and it has been upgraded to the 2nd level. Presently, your insect step skill has gained small success. Chapter 16, Entering the 5th Dimension. Lucky Wind City's Fluxer Guild was located in the heart of the central city district of Lucky Wind City. Today, this building was successively welcoming many new Flux disciples that had passed this year. Among them were both men and women of ages between 15 to 18 years old. A looming pride was present on every one of these elegant and tender face. However, this group of boys and girls did indeed have a reason to be proud. Because to ordinary people, they were Fluxers, they were considered to be unexcelled in the world and they represented the current world's most powerful and formidable future. 15, 19, 23, 26. There is still one missing, who still hasn't reported. The person responsible for taking roll calls was a famous elder of Lucky Wind City's Fluxer Guild. Making a report to the president, there's still someone called Li Yunmi remaining, belonging to the 16th high school, selected last month, 17 years old, recently awakened. A pretty female dressed like an assistant replied. Li Yunmu? Who is this? Humph, he is very arrogant to make so many people wait for him. The expressions of the group of young boys and girls turned extremely ugly. 16th high school? Huh? Did I hear wrongly? A completely awakened Fluxer had come from 16th high school? As far as I know, in the past 2 years, there had been no completely awakened Fluxer coming from the schools below 9th high school. All the young boys and girls present in the plaza were astonished. They all knew that in the Lucky Wind City, there were a total of 19 high schools that were ranked accordingly. The 16th high school, like its name implied, was third from the bottom in terms of talent, and the person they were waiting for was surprisingly from this school. Immediately the expression of even more people became disgusted. It must be known that the majority of this group had come from the top 6 high schools. Their inborn talent was considered much more superior than someone coming from the so-called 16th high school. These people were also completely awakened Flux disciples, so what about a graduate of the 16th high school? Under ordinary circumstances, he wouldn't even be worth a glance from these people. Let's wait for 10 more minutes, if he still doesn't come, then it will be that he has automatically abstained. Said the elder, also known as President Lao Zhe of Lucky Wind City's Fluxer Guild, as he wrinkled his brows but didn't say any more. Although the elder was very resentful at this future Fluxer for coming late, he couldn't say much. As Lucky Wind City was only a remote city on the northern shore, he placed great importance on each and every initial level Flux disciples registration. Afterwards, as 1 second after another began to pass, people began to grow more and more impatient, but this late Fluxer still hadn't shown up. Should we wait some more? The female assistant looked at her wristwatch, seeing that there wasn't much time left until the end of the waiting time, she cautiously asked. No need to wait, since he isn't willing to come and register, then let him emerge and perish on his own. Lao Zhe faintly sighed, a trace of despair appeared on his face, he commanded. Start the transmission channel. Yes, President. The few guild members in the surroundings promptly began to work on starting the transmission channel. Regarding the Lucky Wind City's Fluxer Guild, starting the transmission channel was not a simple task since starting it would consume a dimensional crystal. Thus, only once every year when new blood enters the 5th dimension would it be activated. Following which, on top of the Fluxer Guild's plaza, a large number of veined lines were illuminated by the energy poured in from the dimensional crystal. Buzz! The empty space in the middle suddenly slightly jolted, a small nick began to grow bigger and finally stabilized after it reached a radius of 3 m. You all can enter the channel now, but you must control the flux energy flowing outside, otherwise, this can cause the channel to become unstable, or in the worst case, the channel may collapse. Lao Zhe emphasized heavily. Just when the 26 boys and girls were excited about entering into the legendary fifth dimension passage, they heard a distant but loud yell. Wait, I am late, oh my god, luckily I made it just in time. That person excitedly rushed in and said in a rough voice while panting. Indeed, Li Yunmu had finally caught up. Otherwise, if he had missed this opportunity, he would have to wait until the next year for his chance, which he would regret forever. Haha, indeed worthy of being called a prodigy from a lower-ranked school. Before everyone could enter the channel, the last new flux disciple finally appeared after being late. This person called Li Yunmu had a long and ordinary face. His height was also average, barely reaching 175 centimeters. His looks seemed average, but what about his nature? With one look, it was clear that he was an idiot. With that moronic appearance, how wasn't he? If he wasn't idiot, then he wouldn't have been so fucking thoughtless to arrive late for a major event like entering the fifth dimension. Within a few seconds, all 26 newly promoted flux disciples had formed an unfavorable opinion towards Li Yunmu, even a few females had decided to ignore him. Fine. Li Yunmu hadn't gone blind. In a moment, he knew that he wasn't liked by the group because he was late, but he didn't think much about it. Since he had just caught up within the last minute, he couldn't be considered as late. He also was being pathetic. Due to the excitement yesterday, he kept using the hack system late into the night and after fall asleep in a daze. He didn't realize until morning that today was the day to enter the fifth dimension, so he hurried over as fast as he could so as not to be late. Hi, my name is Lu Nyaja, nice to meet you. One female extended her fair little hand and said in a pleasant voice. Her voice attracted the attention of many other people in the surroundings. Moreover, she also looked extremely sweet. Just one glance would cause anyone to fall into a daze and feel delighted and cheerful from their hearts. Yi, you aren't blaming me for making you all wait. Li Yunmu was very surprised but managed to respond quickly and give her a slightly friendly smile while shaking her hand. Everyone has their problems, and I am confident that if not for some major problem, no one would willingly come late for such a major event. Besides, there is still 1 minute left. Lu Nyaja smiled. Good, you have made yourself a friend. I am called Li Yunmu. Oh, by the way, your voice is really sweet. Li Yunmu praised from his heart. Thanks. Nyaja, it's time, quickly go in. That Li someone, remember, when entering the channel, don't use flux energy or we will all kill you. Suddenly, a youth with a bad expression squeezed himself between the two and interrupted them. Li Yunmu was slightly displeased, but he clearly understood that this wasn't the time to flirt and followed the rules, entering the transmission channel with a curious expression. The legendary fifth dimension, he had never expected that this moment would come. This was the divine land which everyone yearned for. Ordinary people could only live their whole life hearing about it, while never having the chance to personally enter and take a look, thus ending their dream. When all of Lucky Wind City's 27 newly promoted Flux disciples had entered and disappeared through the transmission channel, only then was the Fluxer Guild's president roused from his shock. Grandfather, what's with that youngster? I saw you pay a lot of attention to him. After all the outsiders had left, the female dropped the act she used in front of others and intimately asked Lao Zhu in bewilderment. Quite odd, this youngster's body was a little eccentric. When he rushed to come over, his footwork slightly resembled the long-lost heavenly insect step, but then again, I don't dare to be certain. Chapter 17, Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard. This is the fifth dimension world's heavenly cloud castle. Steel and more steel as far as one could see within the horizon, without any exception, were a large number of grandly standing steel buildings. The whole city was made of steel, a stronghold with high walls made of thick steel. The entire stronghold that was made of steel covered an area equal to a small town but could sufficiently house several million people. This was Heavenly Cloud Castle, one of the 7 secondary cities of the 5th dimension. It was also the base of the real world's heavenly cloud city in the 5th dimension. Seeing the scene in front of them, all the boys and girls were unprecedentedly shocked. Although they had previously heard about the heavenly cloud castle from many elders, how could hearing about it a million times be compared to the profound sensation of experiencing it personally? All of them, including Li Yunmu, were filled with great pride towards their central continent at this instant. What kind of price and effort would the elders have needed spend to establish this grand steel stronghold? This was the result of the great effort put forth generation after generation by the heavenly cloud city together with the 136 other towns. I couldn't have imagined that the legendary heavenly cloud castle would be so shocking. I had heard from my grandfather that this steel stronghold is floating in the sky. A 16-year-old female recalled while getting lost in her memories. What? It's still moving? It's a floating steel fortress within the sky. Many people blurted out. Yes, this is one of the humanity's grand floating fortress. In the whole central continent, we only have 7 of this kind of floating fortress. Even while carrying us, it is moving at all times. Only by moving at all times can it be ensured that it will not be jointly attacked by dimensional beasts of the 5th dimension. The youth, who had previously interrupted Li Yunmu and Lu Noujie's chat, continued the topic started by the previous girl and added in the information he had in this field. It was clear that his knowledge about the 5th dimension was far greater compared to people like Li Yunmu. As expected of a first-ranked flux disciple from the first high school of our city. Senior Luo Jin, you have increased our knowledge about the 5th dimensional. Another red-clothed female said with adoration on her face. Yes, I have heard that Senior Luo Jin's father is a grand flux master, so I think he would definitely be much more knowledgeable about the 5th dimensional compared to us. After the red clothes wearing girl, many people similarly agreed. You flatter me, I actually don't know much, just some things which I heard from my father. I am also at the starting line just like everyone else and have finally entered the 5th dimension today. Luo Jin faintly smiled, his eyes seemed to be searching for someone within the crowd and finally fell on Lu Noujie's figure. Li Yunmu suddenly understood everything. It turns out that this Luo Jin's father was a tyrannical flux master. Moreover, this Luo Jin also had a great position. This person was the first-ranked talent for Lucky Wind City's first high school. Reportedly, this person's flux energy strength had already reached the 3rd layer, the realm of the silver crystal flux disciple. For other newly promoted flux disciples, this was very shocking. Before entering the 5th dimension, just by relying on real world's method to become a silver crystal flux disciple, even in the whole heavenly cloud city, he would be a well-known person. After all, in real central continent, although the dimensional beasts would descend occasionally, but compared to the vast stretch of the whole continent, it was extremely rare. Furthermore, killing large amounts of ordinary crystal and black crystal dimensional beasts was also greatly difficult. Thinking about the difficulty of reaching the 3rd layer and becoming a silver crystal flux disciple before entering 5th dimension, it won't be boasting to say that without a sufficiently deep background and profound resources, it would basically be impossible to reach this level. The benefits of having a flux master as a father. Li Yunmu sighed in his heart. Junior brothers and sisters, my name is Tangan. Everyone, please follow me. I represent Lucky Wind City's Fluxer Guild and I will lead everyone to the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard. If there are no accidents, then for the next 3 years, the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard will be your encampment and headquarters. At this moment, a youth walked forward. He seemed to have been waiting for a long time. He wore a red-colored war gown and on top of the war gown was a tiny seal belonging exclusively to the Lucky Wind City's Fluxer Guild. Apparently he was the senior responsible for receiving the Lucky Wind City's newly promoted flux disciples. Here, seniority doesn't matter, neither does age, only the fluxer strength matters. Experts come first and the strong was the king. Since Tangan had claimed himself to be a senior in front of Luo Jin, then naturally, his flux energy strength was at least at the 3rd layer, or maybe even higher compared to Luo Jin, attaining the 4th layer or perhaps even the peak, the 5th layer. Good, then we will have to trouble Senior Tang to guide us. Unknowingly, Luojin acted as the representative of the group. However, he did indeed have the qualifications to act as the group's representative. Following Tang'an, they all came out of the transmission channels region and entered the outside world. Once outside, they all faced the main street. Both sides of the path were filled with all kinds of shops and seemed very prosperous. Inside the heavenly cloud castle, not only the flux disciples of all 136 towns were gathered, there were also 30,000 people residing within this steel castle. They were all specially approved ordinary people immigrated here and had been living here for many generations. These people were responsible for logistics and supply services for flux disciples. Apart from this, the heavenly cloud castle also had 50,000 alliance soldiers that were armed to the teeth, as well as 10,000 war god troops deployed around the area to ensure its safety and protection. This heavenly cloud castle was completely different from what Li Yunmu had imagined. Who would have thought that here, if he casually picked anyone, they would all be fluxers? Moreover, there wasn't much difference compared to real towns. Sitting inside the railbus, the group of people close to window kept looking in all directions curiously. After navigating through a lot of big and small streets within the castle for a long time, they finally arrived at the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard. Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard, in reality, represented the courtyard for the fluxers of Lucky Wind City. The other 136 small towns also had their own great courtyards. The space occupied by every great courtyard within the Cloud Castle was extensively large, almost comparable to a normal village of humans before Dark Ages. It could certainly hold 1,000 people taking everything into account. Every great courtyard was also the place where all the newly promoted flux disciples of every respective small town had to report. The newly promoted fluxer from all small towns would learn flux energy battle skills and all kinds of cultivation knowledge for 3 years in their respective small town's great courtyard. Naturally, if Li Yunmu didn't want to take this road, no one would have forced him, but if he had lost this systematic growth, he would also have lost the support offered by the alliance to the newly promoted fluxers. Although Li Yunmu had the super shadow hack system, he was greatly excited to gain the knowledge systematically and understand a lot of things, like the problems he had previously encountered on the dimensional battlefield, could also be answered here. Senior Tang'an, does this world also possess an extraordinary flux energy which is completely different to the flux energy awakened by ordinary people? He remembered that Chu Qingyu, whom he had encountered on the dimensional battlefield in the past, after defeating her, he had suddenly obtained a large amount of space elements, so he had guessed that Chu Qingyu was a special person that was different from the other ordinary fluxers. Chapter 18, Shooting His Mouth. Extraordinary Flux Energy. Hearing this, Tang'an, who was leading them in the front, suddenly stopped. Astonished, he turned around to look at Li Yunmu. Yes, I was once matched with a female having a special kind of flux energy on the dimensional battlefield. When she released her flux energy, it caused me to have a burning sensation, it was extremely painful. Li Yunmu said while recalling. What did you say? You have once been matched with an opponent that used dark flux energy? Did everyone hear him? What a great joke indeed. Li Yunmu, haha, you really can shoot your mouth to the heaven. Before Tang'an could reply, a boy with a big head, spiky hair and a vicious expression from their group, sized up Li Yunmu with a strange glance. From the self-introductions given by everyone previously, Li Yunmu recognized that this large and fierce boy was called Ho Wu. He was 17 years old and his strength couldn't be looked down upon, he had already reached the 2nd layer, the realm of the Black Crystal Flux Disciple. Dark Flux Energy? What's that? Don't tell me that opponents with dark flux energy are extraordinary. Li Yunmu suddenly discovered that it was not only Ho Wu looking at him strangely, there were many people in the group who were looking at him with odd expressions. He hadn't expected this kind of response. He had just told them a fact, that's all. From the time he had defeated Chu Qingyu, he was troubled by this problem. After all, among his many opponents on the dimensional battlefield, he had only received space elements that approached triple digits from Chu Qingyu, so he couldn't help but be curious. Haha, junior brother Yunmu, dark flux energy isn't just amazing, it is also extremely difficult to deal with. If I am not wrong, then the flux energy with burning property you just mentioned should be dark flux energy. This kind of power compared to the flux energy that we have awakened has a great difference in quality. Tang An explained, not knowing whether to laugh or to cry. Even if he didn't have any prejudice towards Li Yunmu, at this moment, he couldn't help but think that this person really could brag. The opponent matching by the brain of the dimensional battlefield was done according to the rule that both parties should have equal strength. Moreover, it had never made a mistake, so there wasn't much difference between the flux energy strength and grasped battle skills between the opponents. Otherwise, if there was a huge disparity between the strength of the opponents, then it would lose all its meaning to training people and would only remain a place where the stronger will trample over the weak. He could clearly make out that Li Yunmu had recently awakened flux energy, so the strength of his flux energy certainly hadn't reached the first layer, the realm of ordinary crystal grade. But now, he was saying that he was matched against an opponent with dark flux energy. No wonder Ho Wu mocked him, saying his mouth could shoot to the heavens. Fellow student Li, let me tell you something, even if I, who is at the third layer, the silver crystal grade, encounters an opponent who uses dark flux energy, even though they are only at the first layer, the general crystal grade, I am not able to defeat this kind of opponent. So you tell me whether this kind of fluxer, who uses dark flux energy, is formidable or not. Luojin gently laughed. He was delighted, he found this ignorant and loud-mouthed boy to be amusing. Previously, he had almost considered this idiot to be his rival. It was indeed stupid of him. But now, Luojin was finally relieved, he secretly glanced at Noujie. As expected, she also had her brows creased as if not expecting this from Li Yunmu. So formidable? What kind of existence is this dark flux energy? Li Yunmu didn't pay any attention to other people's ridicule, he was only thinking about this kind of power. When he had encountered Chu Qingyu, her flux energy strength wasn't that formidable, only slightly stronger compared to him. So according to his estimation, she had also recently awakened flux energy and should be an ordinary crystal grade. But according to Luojin's words, his current battle strength was even more formidable compared to Luojin, who had reached the silver crystal grade. Oh my god, Li Yunmu cried loudly in his heart. For the first time, he finally had a trace of understanding towards his battle strength. The general definition of dark flux energy usually means that the flux energy is different from the ordinary flux energy. However, our alliance has a more comprehensive definition, they must have a type of destructive characteristic. These destructive flux energies are different from the ordinary flux energy. The burning property which you just spoke of should be a type of dark flux energy containing fire attributed destructive force. Therefore, regardless of whatever attribute of dark flux energy they possess, the destructive strength of the dark fluxer is far more formidable compared to us ordinary fluxers, who use ordinary flux energy. If a person is fortunate enough to awake flux energy among 1,000 ordinary people, then only one among 1,000 ordinary flux will naturally awaken dark flux energy. We usually call these naturally awakened dark fluxers as divine experts, implying that the heaven had favored these people. In place of Senior Tang An, Noujie explained to Li Yunmu. This junior sister speaks correctly, those who have awakened flux energy among 1,000 people are called heavenly experts and those who have awakened dark flux energy among 1,000 ordinary fluxer are called divine experts. Tang An nodded approvingly towards Noujie. This girl had beautiful looks, a pleasant voice and her temperament was calm and peaceful. Tang An hadn't expected her to have such extensive knowledge, she didn't seem like someone belonging to Lucky Wind City. As their senior Tang An was excited, the heavens seemed to have decided to help their Lucky Wind City, the newly promoted talents were extremely good. Only Li Yunmu, this country bumpkin who only knew how to shoot his mouth without knowing anything, Tang An subconsciously neglected him. So it was like this. Li Yunmu seemed to have finally cleared some of the confusion in his heart. But simultaneously, a trace of despair also rose in his heart. After calculating the probability of the appearance of a dark fluxer from 1,000 fluxers, with each fluxer only having a 1:1000 chance of appearing from every 1,000 ordinary people, in other words, he was trying to calculate the probability of running into another dark fluxer on the dimensional battlefield. Senior, are we destined to remain lower compared to the dark fluxers? Asked another girl who had clearly heard about the existence of dark fluxers for the first time, and couldn't help but feel despair. Before they had entered the 5th dimension, they had been recently promoted to a higher status. Who among them wasn't considered a heavenly chosen in their respective high schools, but now, someone had suddenly informed that there were people more outstanding than them, even more superior compared to them. Those who had heard about it for the first time were really greatly shocked and unwilling to lose. It's not like that. Although it is true that those divine experts who had awakened dark flux energy are greatly fortunate, if we continue working hard, it is possible for us to catch up to them in the future. As long as we continue to take great pains, we also have the chance of becoming a dark fluxer, so do your best. Tang An smiled and forcefully encouraged everyone. Subsequently, after the official matters were done, everyone's excitement had also waned. Afterwards, they entered the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard led by Tang An, who also could be considered to have completed his mission. Maple Forest Courtyard? This is the little courtyard where we will be staying in the future. The group of people walked into a courtyard. The area occupied by the entire courtyard wasn't very big and extended only to 300 meters square. But the scenery and landscape inside were very peaceful and beautiful. It had fish ponds and rocky gardens, multi-storied pavilions. The surroundings of the boundary were filled with red maple trees. The light wind flowing around made everyone feel comfortable, and subconsciously, their spirits were also raised. Chapter 19, Noujie's Helplessness. In the future, this maple forest courtyard will be your home. There are many rooms here, but I will not participate in the allocation. Everyone can choose the one which they like. Tang An bid farewell to everyone after finishing his assignment. Noujie, that small 2-storied building at the middle has good light during the day. The 2 floors are perfect for 4 people to reside. How about we go inside first? After senior disciple Tang An left, Luo Jin completely ignored other people and took the initiative to choose his residence in the Maple Forest Courtyard, a 2-storied small house which had the best position in this place. 1 floor for him and Hou and another for Lin Noujie and her best friend, 2 people on each floor. I want this place, no one should fight me for this. Wow, this house on the west side has a fish pond, I like them, I want this one. Soon, the group of youngsters chose the houses they liked. Regardless of the time or place, everyone only pursued one policy, that in dimensional age, strength was supreme. The most powerful person should pick first, followed by others. As for the weakest, he could only take what's left over. From strong to weak, most of them who felt their strength was pretty good quickly rushed to choose a place, leaving only 7 to 8 students behind, who looked at the leftover houses without an owner with helpless expressions. I want this place. Li Yunmu hadn't said anything. All the residences in the Maple Forest Courtyard had a much better environment and facilities compared to his own family house, thus, he hadn't rushed to fight with those people over this. Moreover, he also had his own thoughts about the house. Because of the shadow hack machine, he clearly couldn't choose any kind of eye-catching house. Finally, his eyes rested on a small cabin at the left corner of the second row. This small cabin seemed quite unremarkable, and its position was also at the extreme corner. When Li Yunmu chose this cabin, no one among those remaining people fought with him. Instead, it was the exact opposite. Everyone looked at each other with a faint smile, as if saying, "At least you know your place." Naturally, Li Yunmu observed the expressions of these weakest companions and inwardly shook his head. These people were clearly the weakest, but they still had the mind to mock him? It really serves them right to be the weakest. Without paying any more attention to these people, Lee Yunmyu pushed open the gate of his small cabin. Its area was the smallest compared to other houses, but that was only relatively speaking. In fact, the space and facilities in this independent cabin were pretty good. Compared to his own bedroom at home, it was much better. It also had an independent washroom. Lee Yunmyu was fully satisfied with everything. The first thing he did was to wait until night and secretly place the hack machine at the backyard of the cabin, which was his main reason for choosing this place. Flux disciples are indeed flux disciples. This kind of life is great: free food, free lodging, free drinks and free education. Lee Yunmyu fell on the soft bed in the room and muttered, feeling completely satisfied. The rest of the day quickly passed. Soon, several days had passed. Everyone had also become more and more familiar with the heavenly cloud castle. Life in the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard was filled with both calmness and full of vitality. Only the ones living here knew that the method of education which Lee Yunmyu had imagined was not the same as what was followed in the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard. Here, there was more emphasis on freedom and independent cultivation. The fifth dimension was a very special world. Apart from flux disciples, no formidable fluxer could enter this world because the formidable flux energy leaking from their body would basically prevent them from being able to cross the transmission channel to enter the fifth dimension. Because of this, there were no cultivation classrooms here, neither did it have any cultivation tutors, so there weren't many people who would interfere and supervise your life or your cultivation speed. Every newly promoted flux disciple who had entered the fifth dimension had to rely on themselves to gain knowledge. In the whole Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard, apart from Lee Yunmyu and the 26 other students who had graduated at the same time as him, there were over 100 families of ordinary people living in the Great Courtyard. These people were responsible for maintaining the daily affairs of the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard, like cleaning, laundry, cooking, and other menial tasks, to make the life of the flux disciples more convenient. Apart from this, in the small courtyards, there are also many senior students living there. In many years, those who had good innate talent had all entered the ranks of flux masters and entered the sixth dimension. In the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard, there were still many senior students living here, as they couldn't enter the sixth dimension because they still haven't entered the realm of flux masters. Since there were so many different courtyards, the Great Courtyard felt like a school campus. Normally, all of them were divided according to their years and have similar independent communities. Each of them had their own lifestyle and cultivation, so normally, different grades don't have much contact with the others, but everyone had similarly come from Lucky Wind City. These past few days, most of Lee Yunmyu's time would be spent at the library established in the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard, which contained the most detailed information pertaining to the fifth dimension. It also had plentiful detailed resources on the distribution of dimensional beasts in the wilderness. All the newly promoted fluxers have to learn all of this information as soon as possible. As for the battle skills and cultivation methods knowledge which everyone was looking forward to, it could be found at the largest Fluxer Guild Alliance present at the center of Heavenly Cloud Castle. Although everyone wanted to learn these systematic battle skills and cultivation methods, they weren't free of charge. Each and every one of them was extremely costly and require contribution points to be purchased. This Fluxer Guild Alliance was the coalition of all the Fluxer guilds in the world and was the most powerful organization on the earth. The Lucky Wind City Fluxer Guild was only a small particle under the rule of this alliance. Fellow student Noujie, I have read a lot of books and archives in the past few days, but haven't found any information about the transformation of ordinary flux energy into dark flux energy. Among the ones who had entered with him, the only student that Lee Yunmyu spoke to was fellow student Noujie. As for other students, he felt embarrassed. Who didn't know that he was the only one among them who wasn't from the first 6 ranked high schools? Heaven only knows how to talk to this group of morons who looked at the people below them like they were dogs. Did they really think that the students representing the lower ranked high schools all had low strength? In fact, Lee Yunmyu's existence itself firmly answered that last line. Naturally, it was not so. However, in reality, this was the cold hard truth. Because those people who have high innate talent and have the potential to awaken were snatched by the top few ranked high schools before they had the choice to enroll in other schools, therefore, in the past few years, no fully awakened flux disciple has come out of any high school ranked lower than the 10th. If Lee Yunmu didn't have the H.A.C.K system, his special case certainly wouldn't have happened. Fellow student Yunmu, why are you so obsessed with dark flux energy? Helplessness flashed through Noujie's face. For the past few days, Lee Yunmu had repeatedly pestered her with this question. You don't say. Who wants to live at the lower rung, who doesn't want to possess flux energy which had an even higher destructive ability? Lee Yunmu rolled his eyes, his reply was as it should be, but only he knew that the reason why he felt so strongly about the dark flux energy was due to space elements. After being at the library for past few days, he had read books about the rules of matchmaking at the dimensional battlefield. If you want to have a higher probability of matching up against opponents with dark flux energy, then there is only one prerequisite, and that was that you must also be a dark fluxer yourself. This was the only reason he was so obsessed with information about dark flux energy. Naturally, he couldn't tell this information to others, even if it was Noujie who always treated him favorably. Chapter 20, Survivor Battle Armor. I also don't know anything about this. Geez, fellow student Yunmu, I have already told you numerous times that this is a secret which only the high-level people know about. How can I have any information about this? Look into my eyes, fellow student Noujie, your evading gaze has betrayed you. Lee Yunmu looked into her eyes and said. Noujie's face turned red. After hesitating for a long time, she finally started telling him about the secret after being continuously pestered by him. There was indeed another method to obtain the destruction-type flux energy, but this method was extremely difficult and also has an enormous risk. One has to kill a king-class dimensional beast and if possible, obtain the king-class dimensional beast's dimensional crystal, then the fluxer would have a certain probability to absorb the king-class dimensional beast's attribute power, which would lead to an astonishing transformation in his own ordinary flux energy. This secret was known only in the circle of the upper class of the Alliance. An ordinary fluxer may not know about it, and there were some reasons for why it hadn't been made public. One was that if this information was made public, then it would cause many fluxers who overestimate their abilities to go after a king-class dimensional beast. For those who don't have enough strength, it would be the same as throwing away their little lives. Another reason was that the upper class doesn't want to share this secret. Because if they did, then it might lead to the rise of many competitors. After being pestered by Lee Yunmu for a long time, Noujie finally revealed this secret. In fact, this secret couldn't be considered much of a secret. Anyone who has a certain amount of power and status knows about it. Noujie didn't want to give this information to Lee Yunmu because she didn't want Lee Yunmu to overestimate his abilities and risk his life. King-class dimensional beast. Now Lee Yunmu finally understood everything. In the past several days, he had learned a lot of information regarding most of the dimensional beasts of the fifth dimension from the library, so naturally, he wasn't unfamiliar with king-class dimensional beasts. It has been reported that king-class dimensional beasts could be considered as kings among dimensional beasts. It possesses frightening destructive powers. Apart from that, it would certainly have a large number of dimensional beasts flocking around it. Honestly speaking, one person's strength simply wasn't enough to kill a king-class dimensional beast. According to the warnings in the books, even if all the students in the great compound of Lucky Wind City were dispatched, it would not be certain that they would be able to kill a king-class dimensional beast. Within a moment, all such information pertaining to king-class dimensional beast appeared in Lee Yunmu's mind. He deeply remembered all the information about his target, the king-class dimensional beast. As for killing the king-class dimensional beast, for others, it might prove to be extremely difficult, but for him, he had a greater chance than them. When he cultivates his Admiralty cover and copper body secrets to even higher levels, then the group of dimensional beasts at the side of the king-class dimensional beast, regardless of their number, wouldn't be able to break his defenses, and that would be his chance. While Li Yunmu was contemplating all this, Zhou Jing, who had been inseparable from Noujie from the start, hastily rushed over. Noujie, I got information from Senior Tang'an. After 2 days, the Heavenly Cloud Castle will stop temporarily at the Lamo River Zone. We finally have the opportunity to go out and cultivate. Zhou Jing didn't have any intention to suppress her voice, which quickly echoed in the whole library. What? Finally, we have reached Lamo River Zone. Good, very good, we have been waiting for this day for a long time. Yes, I can't wait anymore. According to rumors, the concentration of dimensional beasts in the Lamo River Zone is very high, and the strength of the dimensional beasts are also weak, which makes it one of the 10 cultivation holy land where new fluxers like us can go out and train. It's not so easy. I must return back quickly and prepare. When others heard this information, most of them were extremely excited. Why had they entered the 5th dimension? There was no other reason except to increase their strength. The levels of flux disciples could be divided into 5 big layers. From lowest to highest it was divided as ordinary crystal flux disciple, black crystal flux disciple, silver crystal flux disciple, gold crystal flux disciple, and finally, the highest was rainbow crystal flux disciple. Every flux disciple who wants to increase his cultivation of flux energy could not just go into closed-door cultivation every day and disregard everything around him. Because through this method, one won't be able to increase their flux energy strength by much. It was considered as the most idiotic and slowest method of cultivation. After integrating the wisdom and knowledge of elders for several hundred years, finally, 230 years ago, an extremely formidable fluxer created a new path to cultivate quickly. It was the path of seizing. From then on, the speed of humanity's fluxer cultivation increased, their strength also became more formidable. From then on, flux energy came to be regarded as supreme and replaced the military force developed by science and technology, which was used before Dark Ages. Thus, humans once again obtained more space for living and finally stepped foot into the higher dimensions, leading to the appearance of huge mobile steel castles as headquarters. This newly created seizing path was actually based on fighting over dimensional beasts of different levels. By killing them, humans could absorb the flux energy within the dimensional crystals into their bodies. The 5 layers of flux disciples were actually divided according to the different power levels of dimensional beasts. When the new fluxers want to enter the realm of ordinary crystal flux disciple, they have to satisfy 2 conditions. The first was that they must absorb sufficient flux energy from ordinary crystal dimensional beast, ignite 12 flux points within the cultivator's body and let the flux energy stored in the body to go through a fundamental change. This could be considered as half step into the first layer of ordinary crystal flux disciple. The reason why satisfying the first requirement could only be considered as half a step into the first layer was because the second condition also needs to be satisfied. They had to compress the ordinary crystal flux energy to form a flux battle armor which belonged exclusively to oneself. Only after satisfying these 2 requirements could one be considered to have genuinely advanced. One of the reasons why Luojin couldn't contest to become the chief of new fluxers when they arrived was because, although before entering the 5th dimension, he had killed and absorbed sufficient dimensional crystals and had advanced to a half-step silver crystal flux disciple, he couldn't satisfy the second requirement. Not to mention the small Lucky Wind City, even if viewed in the entire Heavenly Cloud City, he would be a well-known figure with this kind of cultivation speed. This precisely was the place which he knew possessed formidable natural resources, and now, after waiting for a long time after they had entered 5th dimension, his opportunity had finally arrived. Sure enough, when everyone had set aside their important affair and rushed to Maple Forest's small courtyard, Tang'an was together with 2 other seniors, waiting for them. You all received the information very quickly and all of you returned back so soon. I hadn't expected that. Tang'an's gaze swept past all of them, then he said with a faint smile. I believe you also know the reason why we have come to this place. After 2 days, the Heavenly Cloud Castle will reach the Lamo River Zone and will stop there for 1 month's time. This 1 month is precisely the opportunity to go out and cultivate which you all have been waiting for. Our Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard is very small town, so it wouldn't be able to provide much assistance to everyone. However, it has still prepared some equipment and battle armor for you. Although their quality isn't very good, they can be considered to give a better chance of survival to everyone. Now, everyone can come over and pick. Currently, Senior Tangan was the chief cultivator of Lucky Wind City. Before he advances past the 5th layer, his position in the Lucky Wind City Great Courtyard could roughly be considered as equal to the leader of a college student union. The Lucky Wind City Fluxer Guild had given him the duty to guide new Fluxers. Although this responsibility wasn't counted as much, it was considered as a profound experience at the Fluxer Guild. Thus, the accomplishments of the new Fluxers could also be considered as important for himself, so he couldn't help but be meticulous about it. With one clap, the 2 seniors opened the 2 big silver-colored suitcases which they had brought with them, revealing 1 neatly folded battle armors after another. It's survivor battle armor. Someone who knew what it was, softly cried out in surprise.